Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Legion, Season 2, Episode 10, Chapter 18. So, full spoilers for the episode as always. We got Minotaurs. All over the place. Well, we got one Minotaur all over the place, but he is all over the place.
He is, but it's still just the one.
Yellow-eyed demon.
Yes.
The big yellow eyes. I was kind of noticing that. Which, I guess means he's kind of... I guess the fact that he was in Melanie before just kind of implies that he was already kind of in there.
I think so, yeah.
It's saying that the Shadow King was kind of in her head.
Well, I think that was to go back to the last episode. I think the idea was, it had been months of working its way in there.
Yeah.
It wasn't just that one scene that we'd got, the episode at the end of the episode before.
Yeah. We were pretty down on last week's episode. I'm happy to say I enjoyed this one quite a bit.
I did for the most part, yeah.
I thought right from the get-go, the giant sink hole, there's the plug.
Yes.
In the desert. Particularly the scenes, it was intercutting from the title with Sydney being dragged. It felt like a horror movie. I thought it was quite effective. You also got a glimpse of David with his comic book hair at the start.
Yeah.
There was a weird hallucination, flash forward or whatever, but
premonition.
Yeah, Lenny's lying there all full as if she's eating all these people. There's all these skeletons around her, and then David's sitting. He's got Sid in an orb, but he's got the big sticky up here. It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
But the episode ultimately is that Sid, bit of a fool. She falls hook, line, and sinker, literally, with this rabbit who's the bait. She unhooks it and then gets dragged into the hole, and then is taken to this weird, it's in the middle of a maze, and it's like a viewing room, and Melanie's there. We find out later on that Melanie's actually Farouk. Farouk's left Oliver. Farouk's in Melanie now. And she's basically trying to convince him that David is evil and is awful. And he's like, hey, he lies to you. Hey, he kissed future Sid. Hey, he's torturing Oliver right now. And the fact that she can show her this was like, okay, right, so even if we're not jumping to immediately this is Farouk, actually just doing this, that's her, him standing right there. At the very least, he is manipulating a lot of this to do this.
Yeah, and I think that's probably my biggest criticism with the episode is that Sid never seems to really question what she's seeing. Although, there is one point she goes, oh, how are you seeing all this? How are we seeing it? And Melanie just goes, yeah, don't worry about that.
Yeah.
And that's it. She doesn't worry about it. I'm like, that felt a little bit easy for me.
Yeah, I think maybe you debate that with, well, she was having doubts anyway. Some of the things she's seen are playing upon the fear she had. Kissing future Sid. She worried about that. And she tries to write it off. I just kind of like that moment where she's like, oh, why should I be mad? It is me. But we know she already had a problem with it. But you can tell why she's trying to justify it to herself, if not Melanie as well. But it had a really eerie thing, and what I liked about it more than anything, though, is that it really felt like it was the infomercial stuff all coming back. It was Melanie or Farouk showing her a pattern. Here's the information. This is the delusion. It's almost, I'm actually convinced at this point that David being the dangerous one is actually all a lie.
Yeah.
I'm now convinced of that. I'm convinced that that's the delusion.
Yeah, and was it planted in this, is it this weird loop, right, where, Future Sid came back to David to start all this off, and Future Sid is the one that told Farouk about it as well.
Yeah.
But is it this, Farouk as Melanie planting the seeds in Sid's mind here that is, kind of trickles through and spawns that?
I think so. That's where I'm landing. It was as she was showing her all these different moments. I'm like, this is all the evidence that's adding up to a delusion, and you're making a pattern out of it by selecting very key things. I was like, oh man, this is it. This is what the infomercials have been warning us about all season. And the idea of fearing David, all these things, all the different things that we've been learning about in all these infomercials. So I thought that was very good. It had a nice eerie feel to it. That was the big thing I think was missing last episode for a lot of it, was there was a good eerie tone to this one.
There was,
right from the get-go. And David goes and finds Oliver in the temple and basically starts torturing him in his head. It turns out that it's actually just Oliver. Oliver's just been made to kind of pretend that he's still Farouk.
Yeah, there's a weird moment, because when David first gets there and he's dragging Oliver across the ground, and Oliver, he says, "Oh, don't hurt the host," and that's a really overt implication, right? That he's just a body, that he's not actually Farouk. And I'm like, it depends just how Farouk forced him to go along with this? Was it some sort of actual mental manipulation, or was it more just a convincing?
I imagine it has something to do with the fact that he is controlling Melanie at this point.
Yeah, okay, some sort of like blackmail.
Yeah, blackmail. Just like, hey, I'm actually in the woman you love right now. I could go and jump off a building if I wanted to.
Yeah, yeah, okay, that tracks.
Or mess up her head so much that she'd be a vegetable, or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
take a pick. So no. So what the other stuff in the episode that was really popping for me was having the other characters show up in the plan. You've got Carrie and Kerry who encounter the sinkhole, and all these monks come out to fight.
Yeah.
Also, seeing a guard vomit through his mask was particularly gruesome.
It was, and that's the thing. They're not even there to fight. They're just swinging the weapon. The sound is making is like psychically hurting them.
But Kerry's like, nah, screw this, I'm fighting. And she has a badass action scene where she just takes them all out with her staff. Yeah. And then more just start coming out the hole. And it's like, well, here we go. More of this then. And it's a whole thing. And she actually, Lenny ends up saving, because she's got a magic box. The box she's got, it's this...
Hammer space, right?
Yeah, it's. I thought you were going to make a Harry Potter joke about the bag that Hermione has, but
no. Look, if I'm going to make a joke, a pop culture specific joke, I'm going to go TARDIS tech, right?
All right, okay, that's fine.
I'm going to go. It's bigger on the inside, but it's hammer space, right? And it's comes from gaming where your characters haven't got space for that big massive warhammer, but it just kind of comes out of the bag anyway.
Yeah, and she just pulls out this giant rifle, but she ends up saving Lenny, and Carrie still gets grabbed into the hole. But it made me think, I want a Lenny Kerry kind of team up thing, because the brief interaction here was kind of nice. There was a good bit of chemistry going here, and they're both so antisocial in different ways, but kind of badass.
Lenny by choice, Kerry just because she doesn't know any better.
Yeah, and then that kind of, it's a really weird visual effect, but it was kind of cool the way she jumped down the hole. Like there was this kind of like jumping from side to side.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of I get what they were going for. It didn't really work for me, that visual effect, but I let it slide.
It's something so interesting looking at it. I mean, it looked fake, don't get me wrong, but it was something so interesting about it that I was just kind of into it.
I think it was just really jarring for me. Everything else, it's weird and abstract, but it always feels grounded in something. But this just felt like, no, we're just kind of doing a cutscene.
Yeah, so we have Farouk finds his body. He seemingly goes back into it. He tells the Minotaur, he gets him back. It's like he's, and again, representing the Demon King or the Shadow King. He has been crippled because he's not in his own body, but now he's got his body back. Now the Minotaur can walk. Now it gets up. Now it's terrifying. It kills Vermilion and whatnot. Wrecking them left and right. And then it gets to Sid, because Kerry runs into Sid, and then the Minotaur shows up. And it's like, oh, right, I'll fight it, fight this. And Sid's like, no, I want something to punch. So then Sid goes in for a fight as well. So they're both fighting the Minotaur. Now, I don't know if this applies, because I don't necessarily think it's technically a physical entity. Because I was thinking at one point he grabs Sid's neck, and I'm like, does she swap with it? Does this apply to the Minotaur?
I don't think there's anything in there to swap with.
Yes, that's what I was thinking.
I think physical entity is the wrong thing, because it is physical. It's there. It's interacting with the real world. But I think mentally, it's blank.
Right. Okay. That tracks.
I don't think there's anything in there. Even though we've seen she swaps with a cat, there's a mind in there for the cat. The Minotaur, it doesn't have a mind of its own. It's just an extension.
Cards domesticated cats have minds. Note it down.
Well, they have minds. They're evil, but they have minds. How else would they know to be so evil?
I'm literally tickling the chin of a cat. That's what
I can see. Right now. Yeah. Yes. Well, they know. I think they're evil. They would go for world domination if they could.
He's smiling and closing his eyes. I think he's enjoying this tickling.
Anyway,
so. No, I mean, this is a pretty big epic setup episode. There's not a whole lot of David. We kind of go away from him and we set up all the other stuff. And we have the big thing where Clark's showing up with this giant tuning fork, which will dampen powers for a bit.
Yeah, it's called the choke.
Yes. But it's basically just a giant, like 10 foot tall tuning fork, and Farouk shows up though and takes them all out. And Vermilion are like, "Oh, we have 0% chance of victory."
Retreat.
Yeah. So, but David shows up, and notably, David is mouthing the angriest boy in the world because we got a glimpse of him again last episode, actually.
Yeah.
And I guess if we're teasing the idea that he is going to be the big bad, that he is going to be the evil thing, then it makes sense that the angriest boy in the world, which is kind of the evil part of him from his childhood, is kind of the through line that's going to like sort of take over, and he's going to like give into it essentially.
Definitely, yeah.
So we end with we're about to show down. Like David and Farouk are about to go.
Yeah.
That's basically how we end this episode. It's a big thing.
It's funny, I actually think this is one of the most straightforward episodes. As much as it's doing this weird stuff, it's all set piece, right? It's not actually, aside from the Melanie Sid conversation, there's not a lot really getting into the big ideas of what the show is. It's a lot of it is here's the action set piece before we go into the mental battle or the ideological battle of the final episode.
Yeah, it feels like next episode will probably be mostly David and Farouk. We'll probably get a little bit of the other characters for sure. I mean,
yeah, we still need Lane to use that gun.
Yeah, and we still have obviously Sid and Kerry fighting the Minotaur. Like, that's still going to be a thing. But I feel like this was very focused on all the other characters this episode, because next episode is going to be very focused on David and Farouk fighting. And I'm convinced now that the delusion is that David is going to end the world. He's not actually going to end the world. That has all been, the delusion.
They had us going.
They did. They really did. And the other funny thing is we were all season we've been questioning, what is and what isn't, right? But for some reason we never questioned the idea that David was going to be the bad guy, because it seemed like an interesting story development.
Do you know what I think it is? It's because it didn't tell us that outright at first, and we went, "Oh, I bet it's that." Yeah,
it convinced us of that without saying it. So it basically tricked us into seeing a pattern, believing in it.
And then by the time they suggested that might be what's happening themselves, we were like, aha, confirmation.
Yes, it was confirmation bias.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what happened. They got us good, and we were on the lookout.
I respect this season a great deal now.
Yeah.
Last episode was still a bit rough, but I respect this season a great deal.
The season as a whole, definitely, yeah. Assuming it sticks the landing next episode.
Yeah. Very, very impressed with that. So that's pretty cool. So obviously the hope is that David will kind of prove that that's not the case, and that someone will change something that will help him win the fight.
Yeah. It's just who, and I feel like it has to be kind of Sid, right? For it to have that relationship.
Very possibly, yeah, very possibly. Yeah. And I also wonder, like, I forgot where I was going with that. I'm sorry. I had a thought.
And then it just went.
You interrupted with it has to be said, and it just threw me off track.
Yeah, well, sorry about that.
It's your fault. I'm blaming
you.
But yeah, so we're building into this big final battle, and we'll have all the characters playing the part. Oh, that's what I was going to say.
You got it.
To what extent is this still all part of David's plan? Like, he seems like he's losing himself, but when Carrie finds him sitting in the chair, and it seems like he's about to go full evil. Is this still kind of part of the plan? Is this...
Right, because everything else around him still feels like the plan. Like, okay, Kerry's going badass and saving Sid. That feels like it was planned. Lenny's definitely just sat there waiting. She knows what she's there to do hasn't come to pass yet.
Yeah, what was the way she phrases it?
I think wait for payback.
Yeah,
the payback shot.
Yeah, payback shot, something like that. Basically saying, oh yeah, everything the Shadow King did to you, you get to have payback. You just need to take the shot at the right time, I guess.
Yeah.
So, is that as simple as just putting a hole in his head? Like, if he doesn't see it coming and he doesn't jump to another body, does a bullet to the head take him down?
It does, but I mean, but whose head is he in, and whose body?
Well, right now, anyway, it seems to be his own body. But I mean, the show can deceive us.
It can, and we know that he wanted David's body for a long time because it was a powerful body.
More powerful
than
his.
If David has succumbed to the dark side, does Farouk be like, hey, easy pickings?
Was the purpose of all this just to rile him up? Because once they're fighting and he's full on evil, like, fighting with no holding back, is that when he has a chance to take over? Is that now the chance for him to take his body?
Yeah. And I think it's interesting, as to what's with the plan and what isn't. So they brought the choke, presumably part of the plan, but Shadow King goes and deals with them before they use it.
What's interesting actually is Carrie says, "Oh, we all got your messages, but Clark came too." He seemed to think that Clark wasn't part of the plan for some reason.
Yeah, but David doesn't seem surprised by that.
He doesn't. Admittedly, he doesn't really seem surprised by it. He's just kind of sitting there, and he's.
He is, but it was that more of course he came too. He's part of the plan, or and the others just don't know it yet, or did he just not even care enough to register what he'd said?
Absolutely. I think obviously one of the things we spoke about last week, knowing that this was meant to be one big episode and was split in two, I don't feel like it suffered for it.
No, I think it did a little in the sense that there was there was very little meat to it. It was very much here's the action half of if this was one episode, this is the action half.
Yeah, but I never felt like when it had the cliffhanger, I felt like, no, that was a good cliffhanger. That was a good comeback next week. True. I never felt like it never suffered at the end because I felt like it just ended there because there was just a split in the middle.
No, I don't disagree with that at all.
I think they worked it enough that it felt like this built up to they were all building up to the okay, we're getting ready for the showdown, and then it ends.
It was with
that moment. And I think the Sid Melanie stuff did give us some meat to chew on.
It did give us some, yeah. But I think it's we're about 15 minutes into this discussion, and we've mostly covered everything. I think.
Yeah, normally it's like at least 25 or so before we start to.
And that's because maybe 2/3 of this episode is okay. Here's some cool action and some cool visuals, right?
But it wasn't pretty cool action, and it wasn't pretty cool visuals.
I can't deny that. I had a blast watching it.
The maze is good, and obviously Minotaur and the maze. We can't ignore the obvious sort of thematic things there, right?
Of course, yeah.
Obviously the big thing being that obviously we want David to find his way out the maze, right? First, the maze being his mind, because that's the whole show.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. So interesting actually is at one point Melanie even referred to him as Legion. He'll become Legion, the World Killer.
Yeah.
That was a nice touch. Nice touch.
It was.
So obviously next week Xavier's going to show up with the X-Men, and they're going
to. Hey! Last year we got mind battle cave painting version.
We did.
So I think we're due the real thing.
Well, the jet will appear in the sky. We'll hear the music, the theme music.
But it'll be right after Lenny's already blown the head off.
Sure, yeah, and they'll be late.
Yeah, guess we're not needed.
And Hugh Jackman will just sort of wander out the ship and be like, "Oh well, Bob's taken care of. Guess we'll go."
yeah, why not?
Just think of the meltdown on the internet though if it actually happened.
Yeah. Which Xavier do you think we've got here?
It has to be the old one. It has to be Stuart.
I mean, I'd agree, but
if David's his son, it has to be an older Xavier, right?
Yeah, that's fair. Older, but not like Logan point in the timeline. Not that old.
No, it's more present day. So.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Yeah. Who cares? Patrick Stewart's looked the same for 30 years. Doesn't really matter. He's going to look the same no matter what.
I know.
They put a bit of a beard on him in Logan just to make him look a bit older.
They did, yeah. You can see where they played up the wrinkles in the makeup.
Yeah. Look, he's older. It's like, yeah, we get it. He's looked the exact damn same for the last couple of decades. Yeah. It's fine.
It's not like he hasn't got wrinkles, but you can see where they've physically gone. No, okay, we need to make this more prominent.
Yes. That's the thing about going bald at fairly young is that you just look the same age for a long time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as long as you've got a good skincare routine, I assume.
So, well, you take care of your skin a bit more when you're bald because there's more skin on the show.
That's true. That's true. There's no hair to cover it.
Yeah, you can't hide it with that.
Yeah.
So there you go. And we're now talking about Patrick Stewart's skincare routine. So I think that's the time where we decide that it's time to end this show.
I think it is.
And say we'll look forward to covering the finale next week. So let us know what you thought of this one in the comments below. Like and subscribe and all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mailed_fuzz for channel updates. If you want to support the channel, head over to patreon.com/mailfuzztv. There's a link in the description. But otherwise, that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?